paradox, he brings it to our life. And he points out, in our life, instead of talking the language of logic, he points it out, the language of life, and shows Maya in our lives. One by one. And this is Maya, and this is Maya, and this is Maya. I counted 17 times. 17 times. Let me give you some examples. Powerful language. There is the tremendous fact of death. I'm quoting him. There is the tremendous fact of death. Everything dies. All our progress, our wealth, our achievement, our knowledge, all goes to death. Cities crumble. Cities are overtaken by forests. In India, we have a saying, 1,000 years a city, 1,000 years a forest. Same place. He says, mountains crumble to dust. Planets are blown away and into dust, and they become parts of the atmospheres of other planets. These are his actual words. And today we know tremendous explosions of supernova and entire solar systems wiped out. Death. The poet Rabindranath Tagore says, a leaf, dry leaf falls from the tree into a pond, setting off ripples. These ripples spread out into the universe among the stars and galaxies. Change and death everywhere. Vivekananda says, saints die and sinners die. Kings die and paupers die. The learned die and the ignorant die. All must die. And yet there is this tremendous clinging to life. We know it is certain that we will die. And yet the most powerful is clinging to life. And this is Maya, he says. And this is Maya. I was reading Ernst Becker's The Denial of Death. It's a Pulitzer Prize-winning book, a very dark book. There, he says, his basic thesis is that this tremendous fact of death is the prime motivating factor. The fear of death is the prime motivating factor for humanity. This fact of death is there, and we say, no, I'm not afraid of death. I don't think about it. He says, you don't think about it. Remember, he's a psychoanalyst, Freudian. Repression. You have suppressed it. So, in Freudian psychoanalysis, and this is New York, at one time it was in fashion. Everybody, like say, my guru is my therapist. So everybody had a therapist. The pricier, the more well-placed you are. And if you say you have a problem, yes, there's a solution. If you say you don't have a problem, I'm all right, I have a more serious problem, repression. You suppressed it. Somebody asked Freud, actually they asked, what is normal? Because whatever you say, you're abnormal. There's something wrong with you. And Freud gave a beautiful definition of normality. He said, the ability to do your work and to love. So if you're functional in your life, more or less, you can just take care of your business, your life. And you can relate to others normally. Then you're normal. A very beautiful definition, actually. So in that book, he says, this tremendous fear of death is there. It haunts us, but we repress it. And in Freudian psychoanalysis, you cannot repress anything forever. It comes out. So it comes out, he says, in the form of what he calls immortality projects. All the great endeavors of human life, from raising a family, to making a business, to conquering an empire, all of that is our struggle to conquer death. I know I will die, and my reaction is this. I suppress it, and my reaction is this. Whether it's children, or a big organization, or an empire, or art, writing a book, becoming famous, I will live on. But they are all doomed to failure. Because the kind of immortality we want, this is not that kind of immortality. Or nationalism. I will die for my country and I will be immortal as the person who died for his country. But this is not really in our hearts. This is not what we want. What do we want? We want to live like this. Not in that kind of immortality. Woody Allen, somebody asked him, you want to become immortal on the silver screen? You want to live forever in your movies and your books? And he said, typical Woody Allen, he said, no, I want to live forever in my apartment. That is true. We really, that kind of immortality, we all try to get it, but that's a poor substitute for what we secretly want. We want to exist. This clinging to life, this is Maya, he says, Swami Vivekananda. Then, this tremendous contradiction in knowledge. We feel that we can know, and we are knowing more and more and more. But as we go forward, we run into paradoxes. We run into eternal time, is his words. We run into immeasurable space, and the endless walls of causation. Time, space, and causation seems to hem us in, bind us, set a limit to our knowledge. I was reading Kurt Gödel, there's a biography written by Rebecca Goldstein. She's a professor here in Barnard College. So she, in the introduction, she says, the great discoveries in physics of the 20th century, look at the names. Einstein's theory of relativity, Heisenberg's principle of uncertainty, Gödel's theorem of incompleteness. Look at the names. So when she writes that, it struck me suddenly. Relativity, uncertainty, incompleteness. These are the very words used by the ancient philosophers to describe Maya. And these are the final, almost, discoveries of physics in the 20th century. John Barrows wrote a book called Impossibility, where he shows in every field, as the field advances far enough, as it advances, you get the feeling, we'll know everything. But as it advances far enough, deep enough, you end up with certain insoluble contradictions, paradoxes. The limits to knowledge. By the way, it's interesting. In the first week of April, here in New York, in the New School, there's going to be a workshop, 2-day workshop. And guess what the title is? Unknowability. Each session, unknowability in life, in social sciences, unknowability in physics, unknowability in mathematics. John Barrows is speaking. Rebecca Goldstein is speaking also. And it's open to the public in the New School. 4th and 5th April. Unknowability, the limits to knowledge. I was in the Shivananda Yoga Ashram in Bahamas a couple of weeks ago, not for a cruise, for giving talks. And there was this mathematician from Oxford who was going to give talks afterwards, Marcus du Sautoy. And the subject of his talk was on science. The subject was what we cannot know. So the limits to knowledge, Vivekananda says, we feel we should be able to know, but very soon we come up against the more we know, the more we see we do not know. And this is Maya, the limits to knowledge. Our senses drag us outwards to see, to hear, to smell, to experience this world, to taste this world. And sense pleasure promises enjoyment and satisfaction and happiness and gives us some satisfaction too, but always unfulfilled. Always unfulfilled. The more we try, the more our hunger and our barrenness increases. Somerset Maugham, very beautiful, he says, that quote, the more single-mindedly you chase pleasure, the more you find nothing pleasing anymore. The limits to the, Vivekananda says, we are drawn again and again, like moths to the fire. And we keep, after knowing this also, we keep repeating those behaviors, those learned patterns of behavior. His words, until crippled, we are swept away by death. And this is Maya, the limits of sense pleasures. With every breath we feel we are free. We have freedom. I'm acting of my own will. And yet when I investigate, when I try to act in life, do something in life, I run up against barriers. I see that there are limits to my free will. The more I investigate, this is one perpetual favorite for philosophers in the East and the West, throughout the world, throughout history, is their free will. Because we feel there is free will. And yet science seems to say, determinism, that there cannot be free will. Religion says, all is God's will, not yours. Philosophical investigation, even neuroscience investigations, the Libet experiments and all. So many kinds of ideas have been generated, all of which seem to show that we do not have free will. This every breath we feel we are free, and the universe telling us again and again we are not free at all. And this is Maya. Swami Vivekananda says, this is Maya. Then he says, happiness, our pursuit of happiness, the more we change social reforms, feudalism, unhappiness, we change it into communism, into capitalism, into socialism. Becker, the denial of death, he calls them our bloody utopias. As we try to get happiness from this world and make great changes in this world, we seem to redistribute misery, that's all. Swami Vivekananda says, like rheumatism, you chase it from here, it goes there. You're just redistributing misery. And this is Maya. He says, as we increase the power of enjoyment, we are increasing the power of suffering too. He says in geometric progression, little bit of increase in the power of enjoyment, multiple times increase in the power of suffering. He says, who can enjoy food like a dog eating? But the dog suffers also tremendously. He says the primitive man in the cave Stone Age society, could take a cut on the hand, it would heal him very soon. He would be very hardy, but crude. Will be completely unable to enjoy the products of our Broadway and the Museum Mile. No, makes no difference to that person. But he says the modern man, cultured and refined, His power of enjoyment and aesthetic sensibility is multiplied manyfold, but a pinprick can kill him. And I was thinking, in our modern context,